Local and live, covering Franklin and Washington counties, it's Let's Talk Tristate with Tiny and Katy.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Tri-State, powered by Home Right Windows and Doors in Waynesboro, the right choice, winner in the 2024 Best of the Tri-State Awards.
Kelly Kozlowski is the director of the Capitol Theater, and thank you for spending some time with us today on Let's Talk Tri-State.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
And I hate to say this, I'm newer to the area. I've
Sure.
only lived here for a little over a year.
Okay.
I haven't been to the Capitol Theater just yet, but we were just talking about
Yes.
you the other day. Not you, you as in Capitol Theater.
Of course.
Because you are going to be showing the Nutcracker.
Yes.
And I know right now you guys are really focusing on your Bridging the Gap fundraising campaign.
Absolutely.
Walk us through the campaign.
Sure. So the Capitol Theater has been a part of the Chambersburg community for 97 years. It was built in 1927. It's been everything from a silent movie house to a vaudeville theater to a regular movie theater. It has seen orchestras, it's seen comedians, it's seen rock groups. It was a courthouse during COVID. We were the home of the Franklin County court system during COVID. So the beauty of this facility is that even though it is the feisty old lady, as I like to call her, it really has stood the test of time.
Absolutely.
But I think one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people have is, one, they either know where it is or have heard of it but are not familiar truly with what we do, or they think it's not really for them, or they're just kind of understanding that it's there but not what we do or how we do. Exactly. But I think one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people have is the lack of knowledge that we are a nonprofit organization. The facility itself, the building, is owned and operated by a 501c3 nonprofit. And I think a lot of people think that, oh, well, I buy a ticket and I come to see the show and that's how you keep the lights on. It's like going to the grocery store and buying a loaf of bread. The grocery store doesn't ask you to then make a donation to keep the lights on or to keep the deli staffed.
And the Capitol Theater is not running something every single day.
Correct. We try very hard to keep the building going, and it is the home not only of outside productions. We like to think of it as a vessel for the arts. It's a building. It's a place to showcase art, whether that is outside touring companies that are coming from all over the world, or we're the home of the Chambersburg Ballet Company. We're the home of Chambersburg Community Theater. We are there to create a home and to create a vessel to showcase true and art and beauty and the creations of others. But I think a lot of people think that when they buy a ticket, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the building. Where the misconception is that those tickets are what funds the production. Mm-hmm. Productions that we put on range in anywhere from a couple $1,000s to upwards of $20,000+ to put on a show on that stage. So when somebody buys a ticket, they're buying the experience. They're not necessarily funding the facility itself. If I sold every single seat to every single event that happens in that facility over a year's time, I would only cover 30% of the actual operating costs of the facility.
So that's an eye-opening statistic.
So
it
is, and I think that's, like I said, I think that's where the misconception comes in. And so we developed this Bridging the Gap campaign to help our community understand that we need a bridge. We need a bridge between the funds that come in, the kind of the leftover funds that are left over after a show is fully paid for. Then those leftover funds are what goes into the operations of the facility. But we need to fill that gap. We need to bridge that precipice between the little bit of funds that are left over after we pay for, whether it's the Kings of Queen that we just had a few weeks ago, or we have the Hagerstown Municipal Band, coming in to do a Christmas concert. Once those are paid for, then we need the help after that to keep the lights on, to keep the facility up and running. I jokingly, like I said, I call her the feisty old lady because, she's 97 years old and it takes...
She can leak, she can...
Exactly, she can leak, she can, you walk in one day and it's raining and all of a sudden it's raining in the lobby, which has happened to me before.
Sure. Yeah.
So little things like that. So the funding that covers that additional, that covers the operation of the facility comes from the kindness and support and generosity of our local donors, of people in our community that are willing to say, look, I care about having the arts in my community. I care about having a vessel to showcase what the creativity of our community has to offer. And that's where we seek out the kindness and generosity of donors within our community, whether it is through individual donations, whether it's through business sponsorships that are willing to come on and say, hey, I'm willing to partner with you, and I'm willing to say I will use what megaphone I have as a business to share with the community what you have to offer. Or whether it's grant funding or things like that, us seeking out our local government and our state government and our federal government to make an investment in what we're trying to do and trying to keep the arts alive in our community. It's been alive and active for 97 years. I certainly don't want to be the one that stands in the way of keeping it around for another 97 years. I'd like to see it hit 100. I've been a part of the organization since I was a kid. And so to be able now to have some control in the driving force of how we keep it alive, I think is so important. So we need that support from our community to, jokingly, bridge the gap, but truly bridge the funding gap between what comes in solely from our ticket sales and then what is needed just to keep the lights on, to keep the building running.
Are there certain events that you are hosting within the campaign for fundraising? So
we do a couple of fundraising events throughout the course of the year. Our Bridging the Gap is kind of our overarching funding source, kind of the education of how we work things and the education of where those funding gaps come in. And then we have 3 fundraising events that we do throughout the course of the year. We do an Irish happy hour around St. Patrick's Day with Irish music and drinks and food, and that becomes kind of a fundraiser. And then we do 2 outdoor concerts. We do a Blues, Brews, and Barbecue in the spring, and then we do our Backlot Blast in the summertime, which are our fundraising events. And the nice thing about those events is that we're very open with our performers to say, listen, here's the education of how we fund things. Here's the education of the gaps that we have. Are you willing to work with us and make your appearances at somewhat of a reduction to help us raise that money, to help buy into the idea that we want to have places for you to perform for the future? Were you willing to step up and help? But we try to keep that overriding message flowing through of needing that bridge above and beyond what our ticket sales cover.
I had no idea. I mean, so I'm glad that you're sharing this information. If I didn't know, I'm sure other people didn't know either.
Absolutely. And I think that's like I said, I think that has been the misconception for a long period of time. And I get it. I completely get it. Like I said, I made the analogy before. When you buy a product, you think you're buying, the product is paying for not only the product, but the store you're buying the product from. And I think people have the same misconception with us too. Well, I'm buying a ticket, I'm getting the product. So that's what's not only paying for the performance, but that's what's paying for the seat I'm sitting in and for the person working the box office that I bought the ticket from. And it really isn't. From a staffing standpoint, we have the lowest staff to event ratio of any performing arts complex in the tri-state area. So we run on, we have an amazing group of volunteers that are willing to help out and willing to kind of fill those holes that we need. But we try very, very hard to make sure that we're keeping our costs as low as possible and keeping our ticket costs as low as possible too. We understand the economic makeup of our community. We understand that we are not going to get people through our doors if we're charging more than what this community can handle.
I think people, especially now, are very careful with how they're spending.
100%. And I think the other piece of it is if I'm spending X amount of dollars, I want to make sure I'm getting as much as humanly possible. So one of the other things that we've tried really hard to do is make sure that we're making everything that we do a full-fledged event. You're coming, whether you're bringing your family, whether you're out on a date night, whether it's ladies' night, we're trying really hard to make sure that we have a whole experience set up, not just walking in the door, sitting down, watching something and going away. So, we have a bar, we bring in outside vendors and set up shopping opportunities. We create, we do movie events, but that have things associated with them. So, and that's kind of that's my segue into our holidays. Smooth that in there. That's my segue into our holiday. But, one of our, holiday experiences is our Polar Express. We do a screening of Polar Express, but in order to kind of flesh it out a little bit more, we'd make it into a pajama party. And we have a big hot chocolate bar, and the kids get to come through and deck out a big cup of hot chocolate, and we have Santa, and they get their bell and they get their ticket and get to have the true, full experience of riding on that Polar Express. Or we do an annual screenings of White Christmas, and we have a cocktail and cookie reception in between, and we have a group of ladies that this is their annual tradition. It's a group of girlfriends. They all go out to lunch together. They come to the theater. They watch White Christmas. They all have a cocktail, and then that's how they spend their Christmas. And they go home and pass out. Exactly. But it's creating those full-fledged experiences. Even coming up in February, we have a partnership with Keystone Health for our Galentine's Day event. We started doing a Galentine's Day event.
I love that.
With local female-owned businesses set up as like pop-up shops and shopping opportunities. We have a partnership with Keystone Health where we focus on women's mental health and talking about, how can women work with other women to support their mental health. And then we put on a show afterwards with the Boy Band Project, and you get 5 real good men up there singing and dancing, and
well, Katy's already ready to go.
Throw some wine in it too. We do, wine bars and things like that, and you're golden. But seriously, but it's having, there is so much going on in our world right now. There are so many things that you're pulled in 8,000 different, directions, and whether our phones are blowing up every 5 seconds with, I've got this next and this next and this next, or if you're like me, you have a planner that's that thick that my husband calls the Bible, because God forbid I leave, and not have that in my hand. But we want to make sure that if you are choosing to spend your time with us,
that you are having the best experience.
Exactly, and that we're giving people the opportunity to see, look, we are trying to create a home for the arts, and that they are special, and that they can be a worthwhile use of your time, and then hope that those people are willing to then say, look, I want to see this continue. So maybe I will throw in an extra $20, or I will make a donation or word of mouth. Exactly. I tell people all the time, I'm like, you want to know the best thing that you can do for me to help me out is just share a post on social media. Sure. Say, hey, I saw this. This looks fun. Let's think about going. Or
next time, bring a friend.
Exactly. Say you had a good time. Tell people, and even just you come into work on Monday morning and it's like, hey, what did you do this weekend? Oh, I went to the Capitol Theater and I had this really great time. Just, we want to be not only relevant, but we want to be respectful, and we want to earn the support of our community, that they are willing to turn around and say, look, we want this to survive. How can I help? How can I help it survive?
Yeah, because if you had to price your tickets accordingly, first of all, you'd price yourself out of any type of attendance.
100%.
Really. But let's just say that you could get the same attendance. You're talking about taking a $20 ticket and up to $75, if not more.
No, 100%.
Nobody's going to do that. So it makes total sense what you say about bridging that gap between what it costs to just put on the production and the overhead, the running of the facilities, keeping the lights on, everything, really. Because these people, they may commit at a reduced rate, but they have bills to pay too. So this is not, the economics in general aren't lost on people, but they may not have realized that, that ticket didn't cover.
Right, exactly. Okay. And I think that is, and I think that's something that in the past maybe wasn't fully understood by the people that sat in my chair, or they just didn't want to say it out loud. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to look like, one, that they weren't smart enough to price things, accordingly to run their own business.
Because I think that would be the argument people would say.
I agree.
It's almost like with tipping in a way. Well, pay your staff what you need to pay them and price everything accordingly. If if you do that, you're not going to get anybody to be there.
Exactly, because you're going to get the flip side, and you're going to have people complaining, it's too expensive, I'm not going to go anyway.
Yes.
So you're shooting yourself in the foot right off the bat. So if you have that conversation and create a good enough experience so people want to keep coming, and then you can share with them, hey, this is a nonprofit organization. We are doing everything that we can to keep our costs as low as humanly possible and run on, a wing and a prayer. But we need that little extra help of understanding that, hey, we can get to, in a best case scenario, we can get to about 30%. Can you help us? Can you help us another 10%? Right. Can you give, are you willing to step up and say, this is a worthwhile investment, this is worth my time, and I'm willing to step up and say, yeah, I'll help a little extra.
And it's such a staple in the community. So she is 97 years old. And is it the original structure? Is it the original building?
So the theater itself, yes. The theater itself is. In the early 2000s, they built an addition onto the theater that included a new concession stand, and then we have an events room upstairs. So then that events room is anything from a meeting room to our community theater uses it as a black box theater.
It's showers there.
Yeah, exactly. It can go for one weekend, it may be holding a baby shower. The next weekend, we've got the curtains all pulled around on it, and it's our community theater just did a musical up there with a little 5-piece band and seating all around. And then the next weekend, it's a classroom for or it's an overflow dance studio for the ballet. So we've got that extra space, but the theater itself is the original structure from 1927, and some renovations have been done over the years, but we are on what's called the Registry of the League of Historic Theaters. So we're very careful, and we need to be very careful that we're keeping the facility as close to its original state as we can, with the understanding that times are what they are, and you have to move electronically with what they are. So, we have LED lights and we have a state-of-the-art sound system, but it's built in a way that we are still being respectful to what the building looked like in 1927, 1928, when people are walking in to see a silent movie. And
wow. If somebody wanted to help out, and as you're talking, somebody is thinking, oh, wow, I really want to show my support for the Community Theater, how could somebody do that?
Sure. So you just go to our website, www.thecapitaltheater.org, capital with an O, theater with an R-E, because there are about, believe me, there are about 20 Capitol theaters all around the country, and at least a couple of times a month we get a phone call at our box office of somebody calling for a show that we have no idea what they're talking about, and we're like,
aren't you in Albuquerque?
Exactly, or it's the oh no, you're in Georgia, you're not in, we're in Pennsylvania, but nice try.
But we'd love for you to come.
Exactly. If you want to, kick in some airfare, we got something great for you too. But yeah, on our website, thecapitaltheater.org is the best way to do it. You can stop by our box office. You can follow us on social media at Capitol Theater Center. We're on Facebook and Instagram. We have a wonderful social media manager who makes all of us look good. So that's all we can ask for. We really try to get our message out as much as we can, because we know everybody's so bombarded with messages that we don't want to get lost in the noise. But we need to earn the right to not get lost in the noise too. We don't expect anybody to listen. We don't expect anybody to do, what they wouldn't do otherwise. We just, we want to earn your respect. We want to earn your attendance, and then we want to earn the right for you to enjoy yourself and tell people that you had a good time.
Yeah.
Oh, Kelly, this was great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with
us. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much.
If you'd like to be featured on an upcoming episode of Let's Talk Tri-State, call 717-597-9200 or email letstalk@921thegoat.com.